23年买的比亚迪，到现在开了377天，378天。今天看到一半，突然这边掉了个东西下来，当时还没发现。这是一个刹车踏板，然后后来检查一下，发现这边。
In this video from December 20th, today when he was driving, a screw on the brake pedal suddenly fell off, and the brake pedal is currently in a very loose state. The car owner said, "What would I do if the pedal suddenly falls off on the highway?" Well, Mr. National Car Brand Buyer, you'll be screwed.
Got him!
And on this episode of Is It Fireworks or Just Chinese EVs? We have CCP or Communist Combustion Products. And it's not even New Year's Eve, but the fireworks is already going. Or as one viewer asks, does EV in China stand for explosive vehicles? Well, Keister, a great question, and the answer is yes. Chinese EVs are dangerous, and the entire industry is what I like to call made up. After the video about the brakes being loose, the comments were all sarcastically saying that, hey look, you bought a national brand, it's not easy being one these days, so you just should overcome the issue yourself and think of it for the greater goods. Like this comment here says, small problem, you can just overcome it yourself. National brands have a hard time. Put up with it, support a national brand and national pride. No problem, you still have one more screw, it won't be dangerous. Our national brand, just put up with it. Yeah, you know, at this point, I don't think lemon laws actually do anything in China. They have something like the lemon law, which if something happens to your car, you're supposed to be guaranteed a certain set of things. But if you are a brand like BYD, which is like the baby to the CCP, yeah, I don't think consumer protection is really a thing. But hey, for legal purposes, this is just my opinion. Don't sue me. And just so we're clear, right? Car brakes aren't supposed to do that after driving it for a year. Nothing's supposed to come loose or come off. But what do I know? I don't own a Brazilian BYD factory under construction, and I don't hire slave laborers to do that. Somebody does. BYD recently was involved in a scandal where Brazilian authorities found that they were hiring workers who were living and working in conditions that can only be described as slave labor. Now, obviously, BYD says, we don't know anything about that. It was the contractor, Zhang, this company, that was doing all this. And we absolutely had zero idea that this was happening in Brazil. And the pictures obviously show the story that's very much shocking to the Brazilian authorities. And BYD is also going to have the audacity to claim that, oh yeah, we're not like our brothers and sisters with their companies out in Xinjiang using Uyghur slave laborers, because we definitely don't know that's also happening. All those Chinese companies involved in the Belt and Road Initiative out in Africa and in other South American countries, yeah, they're not living the best lifestyles, unlike what you see in the propaganda videos saying, wow, they've built relationships with the locals, and that there's no revolts against the Chinese contractors in Africa, that no Chinese contractor is treating the locals like slaves, or that Chinese workers who have no way to make a living in China, forced to flee overseas for a job, get their passports confiscated, have to work 1 to 3 year terms with living conditions like these photos, very suboptimal, but have to put up with it. Yet none of that is happening. Yeah, we totally abide by the local working conditions. Nobody's working 15-hour days. Nobody's being treated like cattle on a farm, or worse, pigs. But let's just think of the other side for now. Pretend like inhumane treatments of workers and 15-hour workdays is something that's supposed to, and also very cheap labor too, that's going to free up a lot of times for R&D and other capability development, right? That's what at least you would think, except not.
按现场几十个灭火器灭不了一辆车的，我老公那火烧死的。 我跟你说，厂里面几十个灭火器灭不了一辆的车，灭不掉他们的火。
So this video is a woman who's live streaming. Her husband had passed away inside one of a BYD Tang electric vehicle. What happened was after a car was involved in the accident, the car blew up in flames and all the windows and doors were locked and he couldn't get out. So he literally passed away inside the car. And according to the woman in the video here, says that dozens of fire extinguishers couldn't even put out the flame in that car. And she's inside the dealership explaining details like how when she bought the car, it went inside the dealership repair multiple times for things like misaligned steering wheels, car would turn on and off by itself, all of these problems. And obviously the dealership's not going to do anything because, like I said, this is the CCP's national pride. But the woman is trying to seek justice, live streaming this whole thing, and yeah, trying to find some level of, she lost her husband, her kids lost father, and worst of all, probably nothing's going to be done about this. Now, the BYD Tang, which is the car that her husband had, seems to be very problematic. These are all videos showing the BYD Tang either just doing spontaneous combustions like high school science experiments, or what I like to call the CCP, communist combustion products. Typical things to happen in China, especially in the EV space. BYD can escape responsibility because China sees it like a weapon to influence the global opinion about China's EV manufacturing. Much like Huawei was for the phone space, BYD is what's considered the national treasure for electric cars, right? It's one of the few critical sectors that the CCP can still have some, how should we put it, export controls over, and people, usually the third world country, obviously they're not in a position to buy a lot of Teslas, or maybe other kinds of EVs are not available. The Chinese makers are there in those countries, but the key core of this is that it's a weapon to sway public opinions, to say that, look, our Chinese EVs look beautiful on the outside. Functionality, and not so much, but at least, when you look at it, you're going to be like, wow, this is a nice car, right? So they're still trying to buy that level of influence. And so the CCP really puts an unlimited amount of resource in pushing BYD and others like Xiaomi's new cars into the global export for EVs. But here's where things, I just find it so hilarious that people actually eat this stuff up. Oh, look, BYD's innovating. Oh, look, they unveiled this new 6th gen jet from China. Like, come on, guys. When has the CCP ever innovated in the last few decades? The F-16 is probably going to outperform that 6G gen fighter jet. Why? Because, well, they literally stole a lot of the technology and a lot of the designs from the F-22 and the F-34 for their latest generation of fighters. So it's not like that they're going to suddenly surpass the United States and other countries in the 6th gen when they don't even have capabilities for the 4th and the 5th gen. Think about it. A country that needs to steal corn technology from the United States in the Midwest, do you think they really have the cutting edge innovation to push out a 6G in fighter jet? Probably not. So the entire Chinese EV industry is mostly a number game. Aside from one or two companies that's actually producing a product, most of them, they're playing the subsidy game. So the Chinese government will subsidize them for producing these cars. That's why in China you have all these what's called the EV graveyards, literally fields of these electric cars. They're called new energy vehicles being left out there. The best outcome for them is they get salvaged, broken into parts, and maybe, doesn't leave a lasting environmental damage. The worst part is they blow up in flames. But the overall sense is that it's a production number game, right? As long as they meet the number of cars being produced, they can get the national registry, they can get the export data looking very pretty on paper. But in reality, a lot of these cars are just left out here, just so the CCP can claim that, yeah, we are an EV powerhouse. But the truth is, the EV numbers are going to slow down in 2025 because there is just simply not that much consumption required for the number that they're putting out. But then at the end of the day, who cares about environmental issues? Who cares about overproduction? None of this matters if all they're trying to do is appear like they're strong. The worst part, I think, is they're not made to last. In fact, they're made to fail. Now, this happened on December 17th in Henan province. Taxi drivers gathered at an EV store to protest. It's understood that the taxi drivers bought Dongfeng's Venusia electric cars. That was more than a year ago. Then the dealership had offered them to replace their batteries for free as part of their free maintenance program.
想着免费换了电瓶的，想着好事的。
没想到换了还不如不换。
坏了以后比以前的电池衰减的更快。
我们是出租车司机，我们买的是7辰 D60的电动车，在2022年左右4S店通知我们过来做电池维护，结果把我们的电池给换了。
我们的电池是标准的是58度，没坏之前用了1年多还能充到50度左右，但是这一次就坏了电池以后，到现在正好就是1年多了吧，现在就是最多能充到40多，42、3度啊，就充不进去了。
续航原来能跑300多，换了之后，现在开暖风跑高速就是100多公里，有比俺充的更少的，30多度电。反正本来都是营运车出去干活的，动不动找充电站，动不动找充电站。
But the worst part is it used to run about 300 kilometers for a full charge, now only gets about 100. So taxi drivers are essentially stuck at the charging station rather than picking up passengers. Other brands are also problematic. On August 28th, a customer was test driving the Huawei Aito M5 as a passenger. When the salesperson was demonstrating the self-driving function, the intelligence or the lack of intelligence failed to recognize a bus, an accident. Then the customer suffered a full spinal fracture and irreversible neurological tinnitus. And since that tinnitus condition is apparently not covered under the dealership's safety coverage, whatever that mess is, they're not going to compensate him for it. And this is another Huawei Aito car. This time is the M9. So the driver actually was confident in the self-driving program and fell asleep at the wheel. He woke up to obviously being crashed on the highway and he had to go ask firefighters for help. I was just shocked at the audacity to believe the driving program. I think even Tesla today tells you you should not be sleeping at the wheel or doing something else. Your hands should still be ready to take over at any given moment. But domestic brands, national heroism, whatever the case may be, you got to support them, right? And this happened to Li Auto, another Chinese EV maker. Shows a woman, she's about to give birth, but the car won't start because it's updating and they need 51 minutes to complete. So this woman is basically forced to go walk around with, it's dilating down there. And yet she has a car, she can't use it, she has to go get a taxi. She's in pain here telling you the story. And before you ask, yeah, it's not normal. Your car is not supposed to force an update while you're driving. You're supposed to have the choice to update whenever it's possible. Like with iPhones. In Tesla, that doesn't happen, right? The owner has to give the consent for update. But apparently in China, or in the case of Li Auto, this is another Li Auto vehicle. It started updating randomly on the street. And for 40 minutes, the car doors were locked. They couldn't go outside. Windows were shut. And the entire car just stopped moving for that update. So they literally forced the update on you. And the driver says, what if we were on the highway? Yeah. What if you were on the highway? That's extremely dangerous. And this car here, also another EV. I don't know which brand this is, but it's stalled on the middle, like in the middle of the road, and it's just updating its software while it's creating a traffic jam on that side of the road. But don't worry, all these problems, they won't make it to the front line of Chinese newspaper because they have a crisis management team. Yeah, it's pretty dystopian, right? So this video shows when an accident happens, they come and they cover the logo of the car just so people can't spread around which brand is causing trouble. Same thing with this one. These two cars that were involved in an accident started bursting into flames, and they got people coming in to cover the logos. Later it was found that they were Huawei affiliated electric cars.
两个都是电车，这个也是电车，两个都是电车。
This video is supposed to convince you that the entire Chinese EV industry is one that's made up with fake numbers and things are quite dangerous. But you make up your choice. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also like this video as well. All right. Thanks for watching China Insider. I'm David Zhang. Until next time. Bye-bye.